Mary Lee Walsh. You're not gonna get a girlfriend, this way, or anyway. Mary, as quoted by Chris. Mary Lee Walsh is a prototroll, the former Dean of Student Affairs at Piedmont, Virginia Community College, and the current mayor of Quickville. She thwarted Chris's love quest in its early years by allegedly ripping up his attraction signs, and eventually suspending him from CWCki for a whole year. She is one of the most important people in Chris's life, as she is one of the few people who refused to allow Chris to use his autism as an excuse for anything he wanted and tried to make him act like a normal human being. This, of course, meant war. The resulting conflict between Chris and Mary Lee affected Chris so profoundly that she became the sole focus of many early CWCki sub-episodes. Even to this day, she is still arguably the supreme villain in the CWCki series, a status that even Clyde Cash and Liquid Chris could never match. As such, she is revered and cherished among trolls for her actions, both in real life and in CWCki fan fiction. All hail the Dean! By early 2009, many years after the college suspension episode, Chris had begun to express a desire for reconciliation with Walsh. He began with the retcon of the fictional Mary's name to the slightly less defamatory Slailrayam, implying, and later stating outright, that the character was not related to the real Mary. For several months Chris made conciliatory gestures, including sending a drawing to her house, but her only response was a legal summons. Since then, Chris has accepted that Walsh will never be able to truly earn his forgiveness. Chris' continued feud with Mary Lee Walsh is illustrative of his propensity to hold severe grudges over seemingly minor incidents. In late 2013, 10 years after the August 2003 incident, Chris blamed Mary Lee Walsh in part for his continued decline in a series of Facebook ramblings, and referred to a Walmart manager who banned him from the store as a Mary Lee Walshing witch bitch. Walsh slipped Chris attention until mid-2019, when she retired, which prompted him to tweet wishing her a peaceful retirement until her time of passing, as well as offering constructive criticism on how she could have better handled her interactions with him. He followed up asking if she had ever made any recorded statement about his apology drawing from 10 years earlier. 2 years later, Chris revealed that Walsh's comic counterpart had become the mayor of Quickville. Walsh was the Dean of Student Affairs at CWCki and a member of the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance. She has also written a book about coping with college life, which perhaps unsurprisingly does not advocate attacking one's superiors with magical curses. Chris had first been scolded by her for passing around photocopies of his CWCki's newsletter, but delivered the most crushing blow when Chris was loitering with his usual attraction sign. According to Chris, Walsh tore down his sign and told him that he would never get a girlfriend this way, or indeed at all. However true this alleged statement may have been, there is virtually no chance Mary said it, as it would have been highly inappropriate and would have jeopardized her job. It should be noted that judging by her email exchanges with Chris, Walsh was anything but hostile towards Chris, quite the opposite. In fact, versus Chris's version of events, Walsh was entirely reasonable in her conduct towards Chris and his attraction sign escapades. Chris, being the narcissist he is, disregarded her warnings to stop posting his signs and continued to place this ad for his love quest in the main campus building. Walsh, taking umbrage at this clear defiance of her authority, took Chris to her office to discuss the situation with him. What exactly transpired during the meeting is a source of mass debate, as the only accounts made public are written by Chris and thus heavily biased. What is known is that during the meeting, Chris pretended to converse out loud with CWCki, relaying what CWCki said to her. Then, after what Chris described as being talked down, to rudely and hoarsely, he verbally attacked her in a fit of rage, going so far as to hex her with the dreaded curse Hamiha. This event was later dramatized, with plenty of wish fulfillment added, in the short comic Christian plus CWCki versus The Mastermind in CWCki 0, which was later remade as Which Confront in CWCki 2. Chris was told in no uncertain terms that he couldn't continue his love quest on campus, prompting him to slander Walsh on his website and send her an attempt at an intimidating drawing. This little stunt got him banned from CWCki for a whole year, and forced to take anger management classes and get psychiatric help before he was readmitted. Any positive effects these may have are not evident. In his own words. So, as of August, Y2K3, I did the most logical, sensible, and inexpensive idea I could think of. I made a simple sign that stated, I'm a 21-year-old and single male seeking an 18 to 21-year-old single female companion, along with a basic description of qualities I felt were best suited, due to the fact that it described most every boyfriend-free, 18 to 21-year-old girl. Sadly though, not a single one even gave me a glance, a momentary pause, or even an excuse-making throat clearing to read the sign or give me the time of day. And the few who noticed. That evil witch of the private villa of corrupted citizens, Mary Lee Walsh, a bunch of non-blue or black impersonating jerkops, manajerks and every other, only a few total, son/daughter of AB mocked me and even crumbled my efforts and threw them into my face. It was serious heart-shattering insults like that which literally shattered my heart to almost nothing and murdered my soul. Like as if I didn't already understand that love can't be hurried, but they all left a huge impression among the general population that having a sweetheart was illegal in Virginia. Thus, Virginia is for virgins, not lovers, was what I had thought for a long time, with the dark forces that were forced into me, betting with my torturing past with the jerks of the Greene County school system during the childhood years of my life. Thank God for blessing me with many happy years at Providence Middle School and Manchester High School in Chesterfield, rounding my feelings and attitude out for today. Emails with Mary. Subject: Hi again. Mary, I've slept on it, and I have realized that note hanging is not the way to get attention. And I don't really want to meet with either you nor Susan, no offense. I'll tell you what, let's forget the meeting, and if you will allow my newsletter to stay in distribution, I will do all of the following. I will never hang notes on the wall again. I'll consider stopping my silent treatment on Susan. I'll consider knocking you and Susan up my scale of respect each by 2 points, 0 equals no respect, 10 equals respect. Please reply via email. Christian C. Subject: Hi again. Christian, Susan Hannafan and I will be able to meet with you on Monday, February 9th in my office at 3 p.m. I do not have any time this week that works with all of our schedules, so it will have to be next Monday. I normally send students notice of appointments by mail, but you have asked that I correspond to you through email. It is necessary that this meeting take place, so if Monday is not convenient for you, please let me know and we will set a time for Wednesday. Subject: Hello. Hey, Mrs. Sanford, or should I say Ginny or Virginia, I am delighted to hear from you as well. And it is also good to know that you are still residing at that address. The DVD is under production, to be completed a few days after February 24, 2007, my 25th birthday, yay. You may be able to help me in a portion of it now. There will be a slideshow, projected from my PlayStation Portable, featuring not only pics of me growing up, but the friends, teachers and relatives I've known and remembered, either from heart, like yourself, as well as yearbook signatures. Anyway, do you remember from the old class, Sarah and Mika, the blonde girl with glasses, and the slow-talking African-American who Ms. Eckel told over and over to get his dad to teach him how to shave? I remembered both of them from heart, but unfortunately I don't remember their last names, so it's harder to find them in the yearbooks. Could you tell me their last names, please? As for what had happened during PVCC, in a nutshell, about midsummer 2003, I've realized upon revelation that I needed a girlfriend to make into a sweetheart from the ground up, so with a sign, which I've later realized that it made me look slow-minded, but our word, I've started my enduring love quest. The Dean of Student Services, Mary Lee Walsh, came out and tore my sign up right in front of me, and said, "You're not gonna get a girlfriend this way or any way." That shattered my heart and murdered my soul. And it wasn't just her. The policeman imposters in brown, white and red, aka the jerkops, blue and black are the true police soldiers, also seriously indented the impression that Virginia is for virgins, not lovers. But it has a happy ending. In mid-2005, when I've started playing the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, I met this girl who, upon numerous conversations, art sharing and secret confidence, I've grown fond of, and my heart and soul recovered from the serious emotional and physical pain I've endured. Although she's not interested in a serious relationship, I still am fond of her, and I'm hoping that she may have a change of heart. You may learn more about what had happened to me from the sub-episodes in my CWCki comic book, which I have the legible images uploaded onto my CWCki site. Those sub-episodes are based on my real-life events. Well, that's about it for now. I hope you do well as well. And I will make that DVD copy for you after I've finalized the master copy. Please tell the remaining faculty who are still working at Providence that I wish them the best as well. I still remember Mrs. Rogers, my old computer teacher, when she played as Woodstock in the 1996 Snoopy play, that was just fun and cute. Smiley face. Take care, Christian Weston Chandler, aka, nickname, Chris Chan. Mary Lee Walsh in CWCki. After the first encounter with Mary, I put her into my comics from the start as my personal main adversary, with her horde of imposter police people, also known as jerk-ups, and the notorious Count Graduan trapped in the glass orb on the scepter she wields. Chris, in regards to a comic which he claimed was never meant to be about him. Because of all the stress Mary Lee Walsh caused, Chris brooded and obsessed over his heart-shattering defeat and began to reinvent the entire scenario so that he came out as the victor. As such, Walsh began to appear in a lot of Chris's works as a primary antagonist, specifically opposing his love quest. In the comics, Walsh appears as a literal witch, complete with a broomstick. In an ingenious parody, she is the leader of the Private Villa of Corrupted Citizens, or PVCC. Her sinister deeds are motivated by a totally unexplained hatred of true love and people who seek it, making her a fitting adversary for the heartsick Chris and the deeply monogamous Sonichu. As the Witch of Hearts, Walsh's broader goal is to wage war against love itself, although her only tactic is to send jerk-ups into Quickville to beat up anyone engaging in romance. She needed Graduan's help for the later invasions. For no given reason, she considers Chris the most important target of her malign actions and doesn't seem aware of the fact that true love occurs outside of Quickville as well. Mary's first appearances in the comics are in Sonichu number 0, via a brief preview and several short comic strips that don't formally introduce her. Her formal debut in the canon is in Sonichu number 2. Upon her introduction, Chris and Mary are already bitter enemies, yet Chris never explains the exact source of their hostility beyond stating that she once shattered his heart and she is inexplicably frustrated by his dogged persistence in searching for love. It is, however, made immediately clear that their feud has become intensely personal. Both characters are fully prepared to fight to the death. In Sonichu number 2, Chris ties together the ancient evil of the Yanchuan prophecy with his own petty grudges by teaming Mary with Count Graduan. Imprisoned in a magical scepter, Graduan's power is wielded by Walsh for much of the series. Together, Graduan and Walsh represent the dual miseries of his becoming an adult, the trauma of graduating from his beloved high school, and the stress of his disastrous collegiate career. To combat Walsh's powerful new accomplice, in Sonichu number 3, Chris gains the powers of Christian Sonichu, escalating the original battle between a fat virgin and an old lady to an epic struggle between a horribly drawn Sonic OC and an old lady with a scepter. During her reign of terror, Walsh threatens the city of Quickville on multiple occasions. In Sonichu number 2, she and Graduan create a golem to stomp the city. Much of the action in Sonichu number 4 involves Chris fending off Walsh's agents, until he and Crystal finally storm PVCC and liberate the college from her evil, although Mary simply relocates to Menchinasu High to establish a new base of operations. In Sonichu number 5, she floods the town with her army of jerk-ops to stage a coup against Chris and his loyal police force. When this plan begins to collapse, she and Graduan attempt to trap Chris in a dark mirror hole, but are only successful in ensnaring Crystal. When Chris later became stuck in the time void in Sonichu number 7, Mary seizes the opportunity and prepares to attack Quickville in her most audacious invasion yet, laying siege with vast armies of Decepticlones in Sonichu number 9 and causing untold damage before being defeated by Sonichu. Her evil is finally put to an end in Sonichu number 10, when Chris uses the power of the Sonichu balls to become Colossal Christian. He then destroys Graduan's scepter and easily overpowers her, but instead of killing her, like he killed 100 plus innocent people in that very issue, he paralyzes her, seemingly permanently, and sends her to jail. A consistent theme in Mary's story arc is that she is to blame for almost everything that maligns Chris or Quickville, mirroring Chris's insane belief that the real-life Mary was somehow the singular author of all his misfortunes. Even her conspirators are victims. Virtually all of her jerk-ops are simply brainwashed against their will, and even co-villain Count Graduan finds her to be selfish and wicked, thinking only of her petty squabbles with Chris and never about helping him get free from his scepter. To labor the point even more, while Chris suggests that some of her followers have good in them and are capable of redemption, Mary herself is pure evil. Renaming and retcons. As a result of the Miyamoto saga, many characters based on real-life figures were renamed. In an act of utmost subtlety, Mary Lee Walsh became Slayilriam or Slayil the Witch. A devious maneuver indeed. As one can see, the name is not entirely backward, and there are letters missing. Nobody could possibly figure out the connection, unless of course they happened to see the notice posted prominently on the SonicWho.net front page detailing the full extent of the name changes. Walsh being one of the primary villains in both the comic and real life, Chris obviously didn't want to change the name to an entirely unrecognizable form, as that would require originality. The name is an evolution of Slayilriam, which was Chris's version of MLW in his custom Yu-Gi-Oh cards. In all likelihood, he had only used the reverse code as a means to insult Mary with the card without fear of getting in trouble if someone saw it. In August 2009, Chris put up a page on CWCki entitled Two Marys, in which he tried to explain the retconning of Mary Lee Walsh's name to Slail Ryam. Apparently, the evil Mary Lee Walsh had been Slail all along, except Slail changed her name from Mary Lee Walsh later on, while the real Mary was innocent the whole time. This, of course, makes absolutely no sense, as Chris has changed every instance of the evil Mary's name to Slail in later edits of his comics, even during her introduction in Sonicha No. 0, where her character is introduced as Slail the Witch and not Mary Lee Walsh. Chris had essentially created a paradox within his universe, having made a comic where Slail, caught by Chris and the police, apologizes to Mary for ruining her good name, but because of the retcon, Slail hasn't really had a chance to ruin Mary's name in the first place. Another glaring contradiction is that Slail says in the apology comic that she's sorry for using Mary's name in vain, and when I constructed PVC Citizens and made Mary look a fool for about 6 years, but on the Two Marys page, this caption appears below a picture of Slail Ryam. This Mary later changed her name to Slail Ryam, and she was creating witch brew during night hours and sharing them illegally with the bums outside of the building. She was fired from PVCC, then went on to build PVC Citizens. Chris, demonstrating his inability to create a cohesive plot. Voodoo Lego Mary. Chris shakes this container and holds it upside down to torment her. Mary Lee Walsh, as she appears in the comic. Chris draws her tits almost as big as his fans do. Mary Lee Walsh in Soul Calibur. It is unclear whether or not Chris ever attempted to physically harm Mary Lee Walsh, but in a video he uploaded to YouTube, Chris lives out his fantasy of beating the daylights out of her. Chris creates himself and many other real-life friends and enemies in the video game Soul Calibur 3, so that he can take out his pent-up rage in the most disturbing, passive-aggressive manner possible. It should be noted that Chris appears to struggle with defeating an AI-controlled Mary Lee Walsh on the easiest possible setting. Possible reconciliation. Beyond his efforts to retcon the fictional Mary, Chris began re-examining Mary's value to society by describing her good works on Wikipedia, to distinguish her from Slail. This Mary replaced the previous one in mid-2000. She has done a good job with her role as Dean of Student Services. She is currently and to be respected with open kindness and prosperity from all the Piedmont, Virginia Community College students, peers and employees. Chris, Wikipedia. The article rambles on and drifts alarmingly far from reality, strongly suggesting he used a quick Google search for research, detailing this Mary's many achievements and services to Piedmont, Virginia Community College. However, the whole piece carries an insincere tone, suggesting Chris was compelled to recognize Mary as a real person as some sort of therapeutic measure. Keep in mind, however, that he doesn't acknowledge that the real woman he interacted with wasn't a horned hat wearing witch, simply that this Mary Lee Walsh was replaced, in the real world, by a good duplicate. In a very sad way, Chris seems to find it easier to rewrite reality than his own fantasy world. Mary was named on the Wikipedia Chris's first woman of the any month to respect with authority and kindness for the month of August. In his edited version of the Encyclopedia Dramatica page, he clarifies that he forgave Mary Lee Walsh for her past misdeeds, even though Chris himself was entirely at fault in all of their encounters. According to his edits, he also hand-delivered a framed copy of his apology to her office, but Mary simply contacted his parents and told them to keep Chris off campus altogether. From this action, Chris inferred that Mary didn't care about him or their relationship, and Chris was crushed. Also crushed were any hopes of reconciliation, as after this incident Chris soon reverted to precisely the same deranged mindset as before, once again imagining her as somehow orchestrating everything bad that happened to him. Besides which, that be Dean, Mary Lee Walsh, after I personally went over and handed her a framed hand-drawn apology of my angst against her, she sent me a trespassing notice. While my family and I did not accept it, and sent it back to her, I must say that is one hell of a thank you for going through the trouble and gas usage to personally apologize and make peace. Chris, Mailbag 26. Notice that Chris isn't sorry for the shit he did to warrant her anger, only that he let someone with her name run around. And why bother having two separate Mary Lee Walshes if he made her Slail? Grudge. Chris's anger toward Mary Lee Walsh continues well over a decade since his attraction sign was torn down at PVCC. In a series of rambling Facebook postings made on September 2, 2013, Chris began blaming various people for a temporary ban from Walmart, including Walsh. If it had not been for Mr. Managerk, Megan Schroeder, and their internet troll/cyberbully breeding and meeting ground, Phil's hobbies, games and toys, my family and I would not have had go through all of the emotionally depressing and financial downfall to the depths of greatly poor and just getting by, and that bitch, Mary Lee Walsh, with a cold-hearted Piedmont, Virginia community college for interfering with my sweetheart search and banning me from PBCC. Chris, Facebook, September 2, 2013. A few days later, when Chris was conclusively banned from Walmart, he coined the term walshing, a verb that evidently means not accepting autism as an excuse. I have just been intercepted by the lady manager. The bitch has followed the steps of Mr. Snyder now, banned me from the Walmart closest to my own house. She has proven herself to be a cold-hearted, uncaring, uncompassionate, lack of understanding, bigoted, discriminating, selfish, Mary Lee Walshing, which bitch. Chris, Facebook, September 6, 2013. On December 17, 2014, an apology letter that Chris had written to Walsh in August 2014 was leaked. True to form, Chris blames everything on factors supposedly beyond his control, and tries to be condescending and play the victim at the same time. He specifically tries to appease Mary for depicting her in his comic as a witch, operating on the presumption that a university administrator is gravely concerned with the way she is presented in DeviantArt-level CWCki garbage drawn by a fat loser, though, given the ease of encountering the webcomic or even Troll Rule 34 art with her name attached online, it's possible she might have found out the student who gave her a hard time was behind it and reacted accordingly. Upon Walsh's retirement, Chris stated that he has left his grudge behind and wished her a nice life, even claiming he didn't recall much about her. However, he immediately followed this up with a passive-aggressive critique of Walsh's conduct, showing he was still upset that she tore the attraction sign. He also wanted to know if Walsh had made any statement regarding his 2009 apology, claiming it was added back to his pile of stresses. On July 29, 2020, Chris retweeted a post by an enabler named Helena Fiorenza, who claimed that the Mary Lee Walsh of the CWCki comic had reformed. Chris confirmed this, albeit while role-playing as CWCki during his body swap phase. Chris has also created a TSSSF card depicting a retired Mary. Actually, that is correct, Mary Lee Walsh, there, is on our side now. Very good observation. CWCki on Twitter. Nooble Mary. In Chris's artwork, Mary Lee Walsh has long gray hair and wears a golden helmet with red horns on it. However, it was much shorter than it later became in CWCki number 7, as shown from shots from behind. In the early days of his Encyclopedia Dramatica page, as a result of Chris's shoddy drawing skills, it was inferred that Walsh's helmet was in fact a blonde bob cut, and the horns were growing out of her head like those of a devil. Additionally, once it became clear that Chris was viewing the page, it became fashionable to mess with him by drawing Mary, whom he despised, as a sexy cartoon succubus who tempted Chris with her body, which he was sure to masturbate to. As a result, the most influential depictions of Mary have been Rule 34 fan art, depicting her as a voluptuous blonde with devil horns, and occasionally a tail, usually wearing, at most, a skimpy purple mini dress and thigh-high boots. In CWCki, the animated series, she was depicted as being physically sexy but having unflattering sexual desires, such as shoving the staff containing Count Graduan up her vagina to shut him up, and demanding a recording of a minion shoving Chris's medallion up their butt, and speaking with a man's voice. For some reason, Mary has become a frequent subject of pictures like this. For more quickie reading, like, share and subscribe. Have a good day. And zap pin to the extreme.